Okay, so in this video, I want to discuss creating hair. Now, obviously, my character, his concept does not have hair, but I realize that some of you out there will be creating a character with hair. And I'm going to break this up into two separate videos because hair in general is just a huge topic. We could go on, I could have a whole series of videos just talking about Maya in hair and XGen and things like that, and ways to create or use hair as a whole. But for this instance, I just want to show you a couple different ways to create hair for a character, and I'm going to break this up into two different videos. So first, we're going to do static hair, and then we'll do one with dynamic hair because there's kind of different routes to take, and this by no means is the only way. There's many different ways to create hair. There's many different combinations of techniques to create hair. So I just want to show you a few, and maybe you can experiment a little as far as doing something that's appropriate for your character. Now, obviously, the most straightforward way to create hair would be to just model it. So if I, came in and created like a cube, and I could do this in Mudbox or ZBrush or any sort of sculpting. I can do it to a certain extent in Maya, but Maya doesn't have the capabilities of doing a lot of geometry. But I could just create a cube here, add a lot of subdivisions to it, and then I can just use my sculpting tools to kind of go in and smooth this out a little bit and kind of push and pull things around and create hair that way. In Mudbox, you could get really detailed with this and kind of sculpt in a lot of detail, and then you could even use that in combination with some of these other techniques to create sort of like a guide or something for the character and the character's hair. So that's, obviously the most straightforward, the easiest way to create hair. And this is appropriate for, a lot of games use this for stylized hair. They don't have to worry about any dynamics going on in the hair. And a lot of stylized characters, this may be appropriate for. But we'll do a couple other things too for static hair. So the next thing I'm going to show you is sort of like a combination of using XGen hair and a combination of that and using paint effects to create your hair. And that is to make basically polygon cards for your hair. And, you would map a little alpha channel to that to make it look like hair. And again, to do that, we're going to use a combination of XGen and paint effects. So what I have a little scalp model here that I created, and I just took this from, I duplicated my model and I extracted that shape from it, and I did a few things with the geometry to make it a little bit more scalp shaped. And this is useful to have because I can just use this piece of geometry and hide it rather than like using maps or something like that to dictate where the hair is going to be on the character. So I would suggest in most cases doing something like that. And this would even work to model the hair. So I could start with something like this and then switch back over to my polygons, and I could extrude that out, and then I can come in and sculpt. But we're going to use XGen. So I'm going to jump over to my XGen tab. And it's also, all these options here are also under generate. So I have XGen stuff there as well. But I'm going to select my scalp and I'm going to click on create new description. And I need a description name. So I can just call this elf_hair. and a collection name. So basically this is, say if I want my character to have multiple different hairstyles, I could add them all to a collection, so it won't be a separate file. I can just pull from that collection. So I'll name this elf underscore hair collection. And then in this instance, what we're going to use is groomable splines. So I'm going to select groomable splines. They will be generated randomly across the surface, and I'm going to control them using my grooming tools. So I'll just hit create, and I already have one with that name, so I'm just going to create one instead. And basically what we're going to be pulling from this is just the curves. We're going to use those curves to generate our polygon cards, but we can use XGen to basically style our hair. So if I jump over to see our grooming, I want to have a little bit more density, and basically think of each one of these lines as a polygon. And to do that, to sort of represent that visually, we can come down here to display and select cards instead of lines. And now we'll basically have all these little cards here. I'm going to make those quite a bit wider. You generally want them to be wider than you need them to be, because an alpha channel will be mapped to these. So you want them to be a little bit wider, and then I can drop the density way down. I don't need that much density. So let's do something like 2. 2 will be good. And we'll make them quite a bit longer. And then we can use our grooming tools to kind of shape and style this hair. So we have a few different tools here. I have something like part, so I can come in and create a part. I have mostly what I use is the pose tool, and that kind of lets you almost like combing the hair. So we can come in and start to style this a little bit. And now the direction of the cards here are important, even though we're not going to be using these cards. This is important because they will be following the normals of the curve. So that's what we're changing here. We want to be able to see that. So that's why we have our display set to cards. So I can come in and just start styling the hair, pulling it down. You know, maybe I could make that little swirl in the back of the head. And then, so the front here, it is a little kind of unkempt at this point. The front here, I do want to be a little bit longer. So I will go to my length, and I will begin to make the front area quite a bit longer, so I can have a little bit more style to it. Kind of giving this guy my haircut. So then I can go back to pose. I have other few tools that I like to use. Elevation will basically kind of just make the hair stick back up a little bit. So if I get it too far where it's kind of inside of the scalp, the elevation will kind of just make it raise it back up a little bit. And then I have smooth is nice to use, kind of smooth the areas out a little bit. Let's see, bend. Bend will basically just curve the hair, which might be nice for my sideburns. And all of this I can kind of manipulate individually whenever I get my cards in place, whenever I convert them to polygons. So just a little bit of elevation there. So once I have something that looks decent, I usually like to add a little bit of noise to everything, just so it breaks it up a little bit. So, but anyway, once we have that, we can now extract our curves. And to extract our curves, I want to switch our display back to lines. And basically what I want to do is convert all of these lines into guides. And then I'll convert my guides into curves. So I'm going to go to my preview output, and under output setting I'm going to switch my operation to create guides, and then I will just click create guides and that'll slow down my machine a little bit, obviously. Let me go to my outliner and just going to come in here and select all of my guides. So a lot of lines here, almost 900 little lines. And then when all those selected, I'm going to go over to utilities and I want to click on guides to curves, and then I can delete my old guides. I'm basically going to delete everything but the curves whenever I have my curves. So create guide curves. And now I have a group of curves here, so I can just delete everything else and switch back to our move tool. And now we have our curves. Now to make these into polygons, that's where our paint effects are going to come in. So I'm going to select just one to begin with, and we'll go to generate, curve utilities, and attach brush to curve. And I just want to select one to begin with so I can kind of check out the attributes and get everything right, things that I want to, you know, sort of be applied to every hair. So the first thing I want to do is come down to my stroke, my brush. I want to come over to my brush and go to brush profile, flatness. With 0, this is a tube. If I flatten it all the way to 1, it will basically make it a card. And then I can make my width a little bit wider. Something like that. Come down to twist. I want to give it a little bit of twist. And the reason I want to give it a little bit of twist is so let's see. There we go. change the twist rate a little bit. The reason I want to do that is so it doesn't, there's no angle where I can look at it where I won't see a face. So whenever that's all the way down to 0, if I get to a certain angle like that, it's just going to kind of disappear, the hair will. So I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to increase my twist rate to something like 1.5. And then, so I changed my brush width to, we'll change that to, remember, you want them to be a little bit wider. So let's maybe make that 4. Our flatness is 1 and our twist rate is 1.5. Now to change the actual lines in here, that's going to be under our stroke shape sample density. So I can decrease that a little bit. Now, whenever we apply this to all of the hairs, we're going to have to kind of edit that in a roundabout way. But, you know, something like probably something like 0.3 or 0.4. 0.3 is probably good. All right, so we have that kind of figured out. So I went in and changed that, so I can kind of delete that guy now. I just want to, you know, write down or memorize what I have these settings at. So width is 0.4, flatness is 1, and twist rate is 1.5. And then I want to go in with those settings in mind. I want to go back to my generate button and I want to say template brush settings. And this is basically going to edit our default brush. So whenever we apply our brushes to all of these hairs, this will kind of get applied to all of them. So I'm going to go to brush profile. Our brush width was 0.3. Our flatness was 1. And our twist rate was 1.5. So then I can come in and select my outliner, select all of those curves, and go to generate, curve utilities, attach brush to curves. And now we have all of our cards. Now, they all have like a pretty high sample density. So that setting again was in the strokes. So in order to change our settings for all of those strokes, what I want to do is select all of them. And I want to go to Window, Attribute Spreadsheet. And this will basically just bring up the attributes for all of those settings. So and I want to go to Shape Keyable, and we're looking for sample density. So our sample density was 0.3. So what I can do is just select that top one and then come all the way down, select the bottom one and hit 0.3. And that will change all of those to 0.3. Okay, and now I just want to convert these to polygons. So I will go to Modify, Convert, Paint Effects to Polygons. And I want to go into those settings because I want to make sure that I have quad output turned on. And we're going to delete our strokes so we don't need to hide them. And then hit Convert. And give that a second to do its thing. So now we have all of these polygons here. and we have all of those strokes and guides that we can get rid of. So we can get rid of all of that stuff except for our polygons. And now we can come in and sort of edit this individually. At this point, you'd probably want to apply your texture to this. But we can come in and what we can do is select all of these guys and go to Modify, Center Pivot. And then I can come in and sort of rotate these around and sort of dial this in on an individual level. And you could do this after, after you combine them all together, which is that's what I'm going to do next. But the other thing I want you to notice is that if I look at the UVs for these guys, each one of these has square UVs. So I think ideally what I want is for them to be all in that 1-to-1 UV space. So I can select, which looks like some of them are, some of them aren't. So what I can do, it should work on multiple objects. Select them all. Go to polygons. Maybe try layout. And do per object. Scale mode, let's try stretch to region and hit apply. See if that will give us the result that we want. Okay, so that looked like that did the trick, but some of these guys are oriented wrong. So what I'm going to do to kind of alleviate that is I'll make a new material here. And let's just assign a ramp. So let's see, we'll do just assign a Lambert, and we're just doing this to kind of make sure our orientation is correct. And we'll assign a ramp shader. And let's make this a little bit more visible. So we'll make the bottom blue. And the top we will make red. So I know I'm going to want my tips red, and my bottoms blue. Now the reason a lot of these are showing up black is because my my viewport in viewport 2.0 it displays the back of the object as black. So I can go over to my lighting and just say two-sided lighting, and that will make everything correct. So some of these are oriented incorrectly. Some of these are oriented correctly. So what I want to do here is make sure I have all of these oriented correctly. So the first thing I can do in my UV texture editor is grab all of them. And I know the ones with the vertical or the horizontal lines are displayed correctly, but the ones with the vertical lines are not. So I can come up here to my UVs and I can just select some of those UVs there and go to Control right click to shell. And then I can just flip those guys, rotate them around until they are oriented correctly. And then it looks like it looks like that did the trick. So now they're all oriented in the right direction. So now I can just combine all of these guys together. So go to object mode. Combine those guys together. Let's do a delete history. And now I have my hair. Now I can apply my shader to it. Now I can still edit this on an individual level if I want. What I can do is just select the face of one of the hairs, and I can use grow selection, which the hotkey for that is shift, and then the arrow key to the left of the question mark is grow selection. So I can just select that on a face level and edit it as I see fit. I can move it around, so maybe I'll move it up here to this area that's kind of bald. And then some of these guys, a lot of these guys in the front where the hair isn't quite touching, or where we can see the roots of the hair, I will want to edit a lot of those. Just so that's under the skin, so to speak, and I can do that on a vertex level as well. So that is static hair. Next I'll go into using Maya in hair and XGen to create dynamic hair. But you know, from here we just basically apply a hair texture to this with a transparency map to give us our hair look.